Welcome to the Fish Nerds. It's a celebration of fishing, and eating fish. I'm Clay Groves, licensed New Hampshire fishing guide, and your host of the Fish Nerds podcast. Today's very special episode is part 2 in our series on how to become a licensed fishing guide. This episode is sponsored by the New Hampshire Outdoor Learning Center, NHOutdoorlearning.com. This is where I went to guide school. Scott Jackson runs a great program that will teach you everything you need to know to pass New Hampshire guide test. There's not a chance I would have passed the guide test without taking this course. This is the second part in our series on becoming a fishing guide. As I was traveling around meeting guides and talking to people, I was struck by how competent and confident they all are. The only way to gain that level of confidence is by making mistakes. So I begged the question, what do you consider a bad day with clients? And I've collected 3 stories for you. I spoke to Tim Moore from Tim Moore Outdoors, Captain Sean Tibbetts from MaineTunaFishing.com, and Twin Maple Outdoors. Richard Yvonne joined us to share some of their favorite mistakes they made in guiding, and hopefully we can learn a little bit from their mistakes. Without further ado, first up we have Tim Moore from TimMooreOutdoors.com. Tim Moore is a licensed New Hampshire guide and one of the hardest working people I know. For more information, just go to his website or check him out on Facebook. But we caught up with Tim at a coffee shop in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And he started off by telling us about what a perfect day fishing looks like and then what it looks like when it all goes wrong. Clay Grove here with Tim Moore from Tim Moore Outdoors. Tim
Hello.
is a licensed New Hampshire fishing guide and sponsored by every fishing company on the planet. And he is when I'm making my business up, I am looking at Tim for what a fishing business should look like. And I haven't led any trips yet. And so I've asked Tim to tell us, first of all, if he was designing his perfect day on the ice, what would that look like? So first, Tim, tell us about your perfect day on the ice. What does it look like?
Perfect day on the ice.
With clients.
It's overcast, 28 degrees, overcast. Everybody shows up on time. The fish bite very well. Everybody has fun. Everybody does what I tell them to do. And we bring them back off the ice, and they go home happy.
They give you money.
And they give me money. Yeah.
That's
well, they've already paid me. That's how I run.
But a little tip extra at the end.
Sure.
It's not a bad thing.
It's customary.
Now, do you get tips every time?
95% of the time.
95. No,
Some people don't know.
Dude, there's so many things in life where you tip at. It's hard to know it all. Do people typically tip 15% or just it's a random amount of cash?
It's very, very random. I found that most people don't, if they're going to tip, they don't like to tip less than $20. Usually $40. It depends on the price of the trip. I mean, I've done $300 trips and got $100 tips.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It depends on what they can afford and what they think you deserve.
Yeah. And now you don't ever feel owed a tip.
No, I don't. I don't
getting
expect it, but it is. Anybody that's ever been on a guided trip knows that the price of guided trips is based around the fact that guides receive tips.
Yeah.
And if tipping were removed from the industry, you would see a spike in guide rates.
Right. Now, it's not common knowledge, believe it or not, to the people who are buying the trips.
Yeah.
Unless they always buy trips.
That's right.
It's not actually, our customers don't know
Right.
that that's expected. Do you let them know in any way, or do you just...
I put it on my website.
Yeah.
Our trips do not include fishing license, customary gratuity. It's customary.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to pay or they just didn't read that, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
The last guy that with a $100 tip made up for it.
Okay. You subliminally tell them how much tip. The customary tip of $100.
Yeah. Those are always nice. I've received some tips that were as big as the trip itself.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So that's what would be a day where you're like on the white perch and people are getting hundreds of fish. And
Actually, no, it
Really?
wasn't. It was guiding. Guiding isn't about catching fish. That's the easy part for me. I can catch fish blindfolded in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's making sure that the people that pay me to catch those fish have fun while they're doing it.
Right. I was talking to Wilson's up at Moosehead Lake about the business, and they said the same thing.
Yep.
The fish don't matter.
Nope.
It's about entertaining your clients.
This is a customer service position.
Are they warm? Are they comfortable? Are they having a good time? Are they laughing?
Exactly.
You do that, you're winning.
Yep.
Catching fish, bonus.
Yep. You got to keep them comfortable and keep them entertained.
Now, you used to guarantee fish on your trips. Is that still a
I
thing?
still do ice fishing.
Ice fishing.
Yep.
But not open water?
No.
No.
It's too much out of my control. Open water.
Right. Ice fishing, you know where the fish live. You got the Vexillars.
Yeah, it's my specialty, and I can literally sit in your lap and hold your rod for you if I have to. It's even on a boat. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I can make sure you're going to catch a fish in the boat or especially in the kayak. I can't. People get away from me. They won't. You know, they don't want to listen to me, so they intentionally paddle away so they don't have to listen to me. And I have less control, so I won't guarantee it because part of my guarantee states that there is an honest effort required by the client in order for that guarantee to hold.
Right. They're just sitting around reading a book.
If you don't pick up a rod
Yeah.
and you don't catch a fish, you're not getting a free
But
trip.
just kind of aside from this, let's say you're bringing a family of 4 out. Do you guarantee each person will catch a fish, or that a fish will be caught on the trip?
Fish will be caught during that trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because some people don't fish.
Fair enough. But I mean, on your trips, I've been on your trips. People catch fish,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
not that hard.
No.
So that's really cool. I want to bring you out on Silver Lake sometime, and on my lake of no fish, and see what you can do on that lake.
Yeah, I hope I never have time for that.
I hope you don't either, but
For 2 reasons.
I'll tell you, if I can master that lake, I would
You'd be a hero.
be a hero because it's a terrible place. But it's arguably the prettiest lake in the whole state.
Yeah.
I think the views there are better than Winnipesaukee views or anything else. Okay, so let's talk about disasters. I want you to tell me a story about an ice fishing trip that was just everything went wrong. I should preface with this is if you're becoming a guide, I want people to know that you're going to fail. And,
Yeah.
And I want to hear about what happened and what you did about it.
All right, so there's actually 2 trips that led into one. So I had this pair of clients that came, hired me for a trip, and this is where the inexperience came in. This was in the early days. This was the year before I bought my first snow machine to guide with.
So walk-on ice trip.
Walk-on ice trip. And I got the bright idea to try a place that I'd never fished.
So you didn't scout.
I did.
Oh, you did.
I went there and I scouted it the day before, and I caught nothing. And I brought them there anyway.
So you knew that nothing was happening.
Yeah, but it was like, I get so busy in the wintertime, things slip my mind, and it just never made the connection. It wasn't until afterwards, like, what were you thinking? You fished there and didn't catch anything. Why on earth would you bring paying clients there the next day? So I brought them there anyways. They caught 1 yellow perch, big yellow perch. But that wasn't good enough for me. It's guaranteed fish, but it's not a guaranteed fish.
Right. And if you're in yellow perch, you should be in yellow perch.
You should be,
Right.
yeah.
There's no yellow perch are easy.
Right. So I offered to bring them again. Only one of them came. I brought them to a place that I knew well. We beat on crappie all day long. It was good. So the next year they decided they were going to come back. I had a snow machine. They saw me at a show. I had a snow machine. They were like, oh, snow machine. We don't have to walk out anymore. We want to come back
This
with
is
you.
the same machine I had, right?
No.
No, you have a different one.
It was a different one, yeah. So, show up, bring them out on Lake Winnipesaukee. We go out. We were 1.2 miles from the launch when all of a sudden my snow machine wouldn't move, wouldn't go forward or reverse. It would run, but it wouldn't go forward or reverse.
Just sitting there, just
Stuck,
revving the engine.
and it just won't. It's stuck.
Now, you in snow?
There was some snow.
But you weren't stuck in deep snow.
No. What had happened was the brake pad, one of the brake pads had worn so thin it dropped down into the caliper and wedged itself in there so it wouldn't move forward or reverse. It was just completely stuck. So I had to walk the 1.2 miles back to the launch, get my truck. Luckily, there was snow, but not enough that I couldn't drive out. Drove my truck and trailer out onto the ice. Had to pull the snow machine up onto the trailer. And I've got one of these clients who won't stand there and watch. So he's pulling on it with me. We're sweating bullets. We finally yanked the snow machine up onto the trailer.
They describe moving a snowmobile as a monkey humping a football.
Yeah,
Just
well,
grab it and just
yeah.
pull on it.
Yeah, nothing
it's
happens.
Terrible. Yeah.
Had to drive them which is the whole reason we did walk-on trips and snow machines, because I don't drive on the ice. Now here we are driving across the ice. It was a disaster. Got them back in, and now they've never been with me since. They won't. Even though I had a brand new snow machine, now they've ruined them the experience.
Well, you can't, you can understand it.
Yeah. No, I totally do. Other disasters are more on the client side of things.
So tell us about that. So nightmare clients?
Yeah, they won't do what you tell them. So when you hire a guide, it's that guide's responsibility to put you on fish.
Right. The word guide inherently it means teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
And in order to catch those fish, you're going to have to fish a certain way. There's a certain technique for a certain lure. Every lure's got a specific action, and you have to be able to replicate whatever's going to make those fish bite. And your guide knows what that is and will teach you.
Right, and that's why when I fish with you, I just mirror you. Like I sit next to you, and I just make my hand move the way your hand moves, and I catch fish.
Right.
That's why I learned to catch lake trout.
White perch feed from below. The number one mistake that my clients make is fishing on the bottom, because there are always fish on the bottom. You see them on the Vexilar, they're always there. They're tiny yellow perch. Mm-hmm. If you fish the bottom, you'll be under the white perch. So the clients will come out, I tell them you got to stay up off the bottom. Even if you see those marks moving around down there, you got to stay up above where the white perch can see you. And they just won't do it. And they're down on the bottom all day, and I show them how to do it, and they won't do it. And if you don't do what the guy tells you to do, then you're not going to catch any fish.
So do you ever just take that client and switch him to like a number 22 teardrop little jig and let him go to the bottom and catch tiny yellow perch so he's catching fish?
Yeah, until they get tired of it, which takes about 5 minutes.
Because they're just these 2-inch dinks.
Right. Yeah, so it's from a guide's point of view, especially when you've guaranteed fish and there are these expectations, especially for me, and people come, they'll tell me like, oh, we flew in from Chicago just to fish with you. I'm like, oh, great. Well, then you're going to have to do exactly what I tell you, or you're going to be disappointed. And sometimes they don't.
Now, if you're clear up front, I mean, that's helpful, right?
It helps me sleep better at night, but it's still frustrating because they get frustrated.
Right, and they're not catching the big fish and the volume of fish you want to see them catch and the whole thing.
Right, they've spent a lot of money to come here and not catch fish.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's one of the worst. It's the worst thing that happens for me as a guide.
Right, and do you ever just say, hey, just stop for a second. Let's restart. Let me clarify what we're doing. And it's still...
I do. I actually start most of my trips by telling them, I'm going to show you how you should be doing it. And then I'm going to remind you twice. And then you're on your own. I'm not going to babysit you.
No.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to remind you twice. And if you keep making the same mistake, I'm going to let you make it for the rest of the trip.
Do you have any client who just like yells at you and says, I know what I'm doing. Don't try to tell me?
Not yells at me.
Like
I've had some clients that, you can tell by the end of the trip, they're just condescending, and all they talk about is how much they know, and you just try to get through the day, and that's where it's helpful to remember that this is a customer service job.
Yep.
And at some point, you got to do things other than catch fish.
That's when you fire the grill up.
Fire the grill up, take kids for snow machine rides, tell jokes.
Stories.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. Good. So that's all I need for this, Tim. So thanks. That's Tim Moore from TimMooreOutdoors.com. And you can book him for your ice fishing trip, because I'm going to be so booked up I won't be able to take you out. So. All right. Thanks, Tim. That was totally cool and very, very useful. And, of course, you could book Tim for your next Winnipesaukee fishing trip if you'd like. Next up, we got Captain Sean Tibbetts. Captain Sean runs a tuna and shark charter out of Saco, Maine. Sean took Dave and I shark fishing a couple of summers ago, and along with some listeners, we caught the biggest shark I've ever seen, a nice big fat mako shark. Sean's taught us a ton about fishing for sharks. You can just talk about fishing with him at MaineTunaFishing.com. Sean and I got together and recorded this short segment on top of a mountain in North Conway, New Hampshire. Sean's about the grumpiest guy I know, but we like him anyway. Describe the worst incidents ever happened while guiding. Tell me about your guiding nightmare.
Oh, so the worst.
We gotta learn from your mistakes.
Oh my God. The worst day I ever had on the water was actually one of the best days of shark fishing we'd ever had.
A couple of fish nerds and some guests came on your boat.
Well, no, it was one of those bluebird days in August. We had sharks everywhere. They were all over the surface. We'd actually pulled baits all day long. We were selectively pitching baits at the sharks we wanted to catch and leaving the small sharks alone. We get done, clients are beat, they've reeled in all the fish they want to reel in, and we're on our way home, and we're 15 miles off, and all of a sudden I blew the engine.
Oh.
In mid-July. So I got a boat that's dead in the middle of nowhere, an hour and a half before dark. I was able to get it running, and we crippled back into the dock. It took us about 4 hours to go 15 miles.
Gosh.
And in the lapse of the 2 weeks afterwards, $25,000 to get back up running, and that's about the worst day I've had guiding.
Because it wasn't in your control.
No, it was not
good.
in my
control. It wasn't
control.
due to your mistake.
It was
just
not
a mechanical
due.
error.
You know,
Sean
I
doesn't
mean,
make mistakes.
I don't make mistakes. I'm perfect.
Perfect. That's good.
You know, we have numerous days where as a guide, you're gonna have days where you get those clients that just don't want to listen, and you know, they pick the sabiki rig up and the fish shakes around a little, flops around, and now they have 5 sabikis in their hand. You know, for those of you who don't know, a sabiki is a tiny little fly. There's 5 of them to a string with a 5 to 6 ounce lead on it. So if you drop the lead, all 5 of those hooks go in your hand.
It's so fun.
Captain Sean says, "Oh, look at the whale," and the kid turns his head, and I start pulling hooks out. You know, that's a normal. That's a fairly normal.
I mean, luckily the sabikis are so small; they come out pretty
Exactly.
easily. Yeah, I've had a bunch of me.
You know, we take. You know, for kids trips, I have a set. All right, we'll start that one over again. For kids trips, I take the barbs off.
Yes.
You know, if the mackerel rail hit hot and heavy, I've got a couple of sabikis that are tucked away that all the barbs are cut off.
Smart.
So when they do get them in their hand, they just distract them for a second, pull them out. But yeah, we haven't had too many maimings by hook. We've had quite a few of impalements.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Now you have on your boat. You've got paddles just in case.
Oh yeah, because you can paddle 17,000 pounds.
I love that regulation. I
You know.
was taking my commercial boating exam, and
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Yep.
It seems useful on a pontoon boat. Get a little paddle.
Yep.
Go anywhere.
Yep. 17,000 pounds with a knot and a half to drift and 20 knots of wind. But I'm gonna paddle my 35-foot boat the fuck home.
Perfect.
Hold on, we'll be a while.
Now, in fairness, I should say that Sean is a grouchy, grumpy dude, but when he took my family fishing, he was nothing but joy, and he was great with the kids. So he's not just a grouchy old guy fisherman. He's really, really a good guy. All right. So, finally, part 3. Twin Maple Outdoors, Richard E. Vaughn. Now, actually, I haven't fished with Richard, but everyone I know seems to have gotten to go fishing with him. And even our listeners have won trips to fish with him on our show. Richard E. Vaughn is owner of Twin Maple Outdoors. He checked in with this guide disaster story. After hearing this, I would definitely trust Richard to guide me in the wilds of Maine. If you're in Highlands of Maine or the Bangor area, you should definitely call Richard, hire him. You could even stay at his house. He has a great-looking log cabin lodge thing at twinmapleoutdoors.com. And we reached him by phone. I've seen him in person one time, but we've tried to get together. It never quite works out. Here with Richard E. Vaughn, Twin Maples Outdoors. Richard is a registered Maine guide, outdoor expert, and we're talking today about guiding mishaps, bad guiding experience. So, Richard, tell us your story.
Well, that is, when I reflect on this,
when you make mistakes out in the field, and everybody's going to do it, and I'm not excluded. It rolls over in your mind. What did I do wrong? What could I do better? Sometimes you don't know what you're going to do until it actually happens. And in this case here, the story I have is, as everybody know, I have a jet boat, and of course it's made for skinny water. I go over a lot of treacherous water on my fishing trips. I guide 63 miles of the Penobscot River. So the Penobscot's made up of boulders and rocks, and anybody that's gone on a trip with me finds it kind of an adventure just to ride in the boat. So, I take all walks of life out, and I take families out. Sometimes I take kids out where, hey, sometimes I really don't want to take them into anything that's compromising where, something might happen, because safety is number one when you go on a trip. But I had one instance that I took a family out, and of course, anybody knows the Penobscot River has a good current to it. It's got a lot of rocks, a lot of jagged rocks, a lot of ledge and things like that are dangerous. So I had a family I took out, and I had a couple of kids, and some kids, their kids are kids, and they're antsy and they can't sit still. They don't like to sit down. And as much as you say sit down, and you have their parents watch the kids, you have to have all your eyes rolling around 360 degrees, watching everything, watching the river, watching the boat, watching the people. So I had a case where, I was going down the river, and basically we weren't under power, but we hit a rock, and I had a little girl that stood up at the wrong time. She stood up, she jarred herself out of the boat when we hit the rock. She went overboard. It was an impulse I had. I immediately I jumped in the water, I took the little girl, I hoisted her up to her parents, I jumped back in the boat, and there was no harm, no foul.
And you felt like a hero.
And no, I was more scared than anything. Yeah. I had my cell phone you can picture this, I wiped out my cell phone, but that's immaterial. Everybody was safe. That's the important part. But, as a guide, you really do, when you take this stuff seriously, safety, which is everybody should, you're wondering, what did I do anything wrong? What could I have done better? What could have gone wrong? In this case here, a lot of things could have gone wrong. What did I do wrong? I shouldn't have left my boat with other people in the boat. Captain should never leave his boat whatsoever. But, that knee-jerk decision is something that you don't know. You don't know what you're going to do until that situation arises. I think if I had to do it over again, I certainly would have put a throw bag out, and probably not have done what I'd done. But what I did do, really, the end result was excellent, but it could have been so much worse. So that experience, now it did make me feel like a hero. Of course, the mother really appreciated what I did, but hindsight, I certainly would not have jumped out of the boat and gotten her and put her back in the boat. I think that was absolutely the wrong thing to do, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do that.
Right, because a lot of other problems can happen if you get off the boat.
Well, when a captain leaves his boat in the water, especially in a river with a current, there's so many things. I reflect on it, and of course I've learned from it. I'll never do that again. But honestly, it's not something that's premeditated. It's not something that you can anticipate what your reaction is going to be. You know what I mean? When you're in that situation and you got this little girl overboard, oh my word, it's just like having your own daughter out there that fell overboard.
Well,
there's no difference.
I think you just nailed it right there. As a parent, I have daughters. You have a daughter or two?
Yeah, I have 2 daughters.
I have 2 daughters also, and every little girl I see, I immediately connect with. I immediately think, if something's happening, I'm going to be there, to help those kids. And so I can totally see that. I probably would do the same thing in your situation. And you can't have that, you can reflect back and say, next time I would do something differently, but what you did, and the end results were positive. So that's a win anyway. So even though you probably did technically the wrong thing, you did the right thing by helping the kid. So that's all right.
Well, yeah, I'm just grateful that it did turn out that way.
Sure.
And it was an emotional thing for me, really, because all these things are rolling in your mind. What could have gone wrong? What and of course for the parents, I gave them all hugs, and it really was an emotional thing for everybody, even though, you might not think so because everybody, they associate a boat being in a nice calm pond or calm lake. But if you can picture yourself, in a river where you have all these hazards, you have a current, at the time the water was warm, but still, even in the middle of summer, people don't realize you can get hypothermia in Maine in the middle of summer.
Right.
So it makes no difference what time of year.
Right.
So,
and as a Maine guide, Maine guides are some of the most highly trained outdoorsmen in the country, I think. You have one of the biggest barriers to entry to get into the guide service in Maine, so you're pretty highly trained.
Well, the thing is, we do have a rigorous testing, test to get our license to begin with. As far as the training goes, it's a continual thing. I've been training since I was 8 years old to be a guide, to be honest. And every experience every trip you have, or every experience out in the outdoors, is part of your training. You don't run into these situations every day where a little girl's going to be knocked out of your boat. So to say what you're going to do beforehand is so much easier than actually what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
When you're out there. So I guess, anybody that's out there in a boat and they're a captain, and at the end of the day, you are responsible for your clients, no matter what. And you take personal responsibility for everyone's, their well-being. So it's a very serious thing with me, whether I'm hiking and, I'm going on a 4 or 5 mile hike out in the wilderness where you're literally an hour and a half from a hospital. So when you have that little kid that wants to jump off that big boulder out in the middle of the woods, you really, really have to, sometimes you got to be the bad guy.
Well,
you got to say no. That's not
got to make
acceptable.
safety number one thing. So it's nothing else
That's
more
right.
important. Catching fish
That's
is
what I'm
cool.
stressing.
Catching fish is cool, but
Right.
Kids leaving, with broken limbs or dead is bad for business. So I think you better have much better to have a client saying, "Richard ended the trip early because my kid got hurt and took her to the hospital, which she didn't need to go." Than have it be the other way where my kid, died or something terrible, worse happened.
Right, or the kids are just not responding to discipline, or they're not, they're not listening to anybody, and they're doing their own thing, and it's they're endangering themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes the guide has to be the bad guy and say, you know what, I think it's time for us to go in.
Have you done that?
And I was close to doing that. No, I haven't done that, but I did threaten to do that on one trip. And these people have to realize, you have to get a helicopter to take you out of here if something catastrophic happens. Of course, I do have backup plans for the worst case scenarios, but the best thing is that ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. It goes a long way when you're out in the woods.
Well, that's perfect. Well, hey, so thank you, Richard, and that's Richard Evon, TwinMapleOutdoors.com. And, of course, you can find links to Twin Maple Outdoors at fishnerds.com and on social media, all over Facebook and Twitter. And Richard's great, so reach out to him if you have any questions about guiding. Thanks.
Thank you, Clay.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Richard. Again, that's TwinMapleOutdoors.com. All right, time for a little fish in the news. I love fish in the news. This comes from the Star Tribune in Hudson, Wisconsin. And the headline reads, Hudson, Wisconsin entrepreneur wows on Shark Tank. Vance Zahorsky, an avid fisherman, nets $120,000 investment on the show. He entered the infamous Shark Tank seeking $120,000 in return for 20% of his company, but he ended up giving up 33% to seal the deal. While other sharks showed interest in the company, Daymond John, the multi-millionaire behind FUBU, was the only one to make the formal offer after seeing the device marketed as the ultimate fishing essential on the company's website. The exposure is a huge victory for the startup that Zahorsky founded on a whim in 2013. He quit his six-figure salary job at an appliance company in Arizona, sold his prized fishing boat and the dream home he helped build with his bare hands, then moved back to his hometown in western Wisconsin with his wife and two young daughters. A prototype made of welding putty and a dental floss cutter would explode into a booming business. Less than 2 years after launching, the rings now sell in hundreds of independent bait and tackle shops in 8 different countries. When Zahorsky realized the rings also cut thread and yarn, the products were stocked in quilting stores, and it retails for $12. Now, fish nerds always go one step further. We had Vance Zahorsky on the week before he came onto the Shark Tank, and I called him yesterday and got him back on to get his reaction after he won. It's always fun to kind of follow up and see how it feels to finally make it in the world. All right, fishnerds.com, hanging out with Vance Zahorsky from Line Cutters. Line Cutters recently just defeated the Shark Tank, earning a $120,000 deal with Daymond John. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
$120,000, man. That's like life-changing business money, isn't it?
We'll see.
So I want to kind of quickly just run through the night. On our previous show, we talked about leading up to the night. I watched the episode with my kids, and we were on the edge of our seat the whole time. The first time we got really nervous was when you gave Robert Hershevek the wrong ring. You want to tell us how you felt? You gave him a Polish ring, right?
Yes.
Which is really cool looking, by the way. He should have said thank you.
Yeah. So what's funny is I spent so much time researching the Sharks. I mean, from how they got started, I've read Mark Cuban's books, read audio tapes. Like, I went through every shark, and I've been such a huge fan of Shark Tank that they always say that for Robert, the son of Polish immigrants.
They do.
So even when I read his bio on Wikipedia and all the research I did, I just, for some reason, that was imprinted in my brain.
Uh-huh.
So I found the right Polish eagle, white eagle, and I'm Polish, and I had my whole story and and when he said that, like, I literally was about to walk off the set, like, forget it, I'm done.
It's one of those feelings you get, like your heart drops down out of your chest, and you're like, oh my gosh. Did you think it was game over right there?
Well, yeah, I mean, you feel this rush of like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And did I just blow my whole thing? And what's funny is he actually, when toward the end, he threw the ring and I caught it, and I said, yes, I caught it. That was like my saving grace.
So you win. But in the end, you got to deal with Daymond John, and I was watching, and He when I watch him on Shark Tank, he's one of the ones who I'm always like, come on, man, give people a break, because he's the most likely to pull the carpet out from under people. Like, he's the kind of guy who makes an offer and says, decide in 12 seconds, and the offer goes away. And he's the guy, like, who always does that. And so when you were at the last few seconds, you were negotiating with him, and he was asking you for like 40% or some ridiculous number, and you wanted 20%. And you were just negotiating. I thought at any second now he's going to just dump out on you and bail. And you actually negotiated down with him when I think nobody else could have done that. How did that feel?
Well, it was pretty intense. And what's really hard, after being a fan of the show for so long, it's when you're at home and you're watching and you feel that intensity. Mm-hmm. Imagine that times literally like 1,000. So you have all these cameras on you. You're in front of Mark Cuban and Lori and all these celebrity, people that are just amazing business people. And you're in there for 40 minutes or so, and they're hammering you on numbers, and you're sweating and shaking and nervous. And then you start negotiating. Like, the pressure and the intensity is so overwhelming. And I think if I wasn't so passionate about this company, I don't think I would have been able to negotiate like that. If it wasn't something that I put my whole soul into, there's no way I would have been able to look Daymond John in the eye and say, I can't do it. And at 30%, I was done. Like, when I said, Daymond, like, my whole world crashed. I'm like, we're not doing a deal today. And what's interesting is Mark Cuban said, he whispered, like on TV. They show, it sounds like he's loud, like do a third, but they have these giant boom mics that you don't see. When I was battling with Damon, Mark Cuban literally whispered, like I barely caught out of the corner of my eye, and he said, do a third. And at the last second, when Damon was about to pull out, I just said 33%, just throwing it out there. And then there was this really long, nerve-wracking, awkward pause. And then he said yes, because I thought he was out. And that's when it was like, oh my gosh.
Well, my kids stood on their couches screaming. They were so proud of you. So you have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old girl. These two girls who are just in love with what you did there. They were so proud of you. And,
well, high five them for me.
I will. I would totally do it. So congratulations. So now we're 2 weeks out from your big win. And how's it feel now?
It's been pretty awesome, like really overwhelming. We're in the Star Tribune, which is the big Minnesota Twin Cities paper, and I've had some schools reach out that want me to talk at schools, and people from Japan. There's a TV show that wants me to kayak fish in Japan.
That's fantastic.
It's been beyond insane. There's a Texas chain in the South called Buc-ee's that I'm talking to. It's hard to explain, but at the same point, the workload has been intense. I've sent videos on my Instagram page of 20, 30 bins stacked full of orders. Well, we're not a big company. Like, those are all packaged by us, and phone calls that come. It's still a small company, so it's been exciting. It's been overwhelming. It's been it's all good, but it's been pretty unbelievable.
Well, that's cool. And now, I do have plans for moving the manufacturer distribution out of your house and into a factory at some point, or are you going to just keep doing it yourself?
Definitely, it's got to happen soon, because I'm worn out. So we're not going to make any crazy moves and just start spending money. We're going to still watch every penny, but we're definitely going to get some help, and we hope to get into our own house again here not too long. Which
would be totally great. And again, congratulations. We're so excited for you. We always love people who are in like the fishing world, who we kind of know just to be successful. I think when one person makes it, we all kind of just see the possibilities. It's really exciting. So congratulations, Vance. And people can still get your rings on your website, right?
Yes, sir. And Clay, I just want to say thanks to the Fish Nerds community. I've gotten on your posts just amazing comments, and I'm really, really honored to have kind of our family, Line Cutters family and Fish Nerds family, kind of meld together here. So I just can't thank all the Fish Nerds community for all the support. It's been surreal.
Well, you're a nerd just like us, Vance. So we're happy to see you. And you can pick up Line Cutters rings at linecutterswithaz.com. Vance, that's it. We're done.
Awesome, buddy.
All right. And by the way, this episode is also supported by our friends over at patreon.com. Our friends are our listeners. If you are not already supporting the show and you want to keep this show going, we need your money. It costs a lot of money to make this show every month, and if everyone who listens gave us $1 an episode, we'd be making $4 a month per listener, and that would be all the money we ever needed to keep the show going. So if you like the show and you want to keep it going, throw some money in the hat and at patreon.com, and you can be part of the show. If you donate $5 an episode, I'll send you a Fish Nerds beanie this winter to keep your hat warm. And our new beanies this year have fleece inside them, and they're super, super warm. So that's it. You've listened to a few Fish Nerds when you could have been fishing. We'd like to thank our families for supporting us while we podcast, go on fishing quests, and do all sorts of silly things that nerds do. If you would like to support the Fish Nerds, go to patreon.com, search for Fish Nerds, and give us $1. Just $1. Special thanks to Tim Moore at TimMooreOutdoors.com, Captain Sean Tibbetts, MaineTunaFishing.com, Richard Yvonne, TwinMapleOutdoors.com, and Vance Zahorsky from LineCutters.com. I should also say, if you want to book a Fish Nerd to take you fishing, you can book me at FishNerds.com. Just give me a call, and I'll take you fishing at a pond in my neighborhood. That's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clay. Make sure you send that over too, so I can post all over the place again.
Happy to do it. And by the way, I didn't realize that you and Phil were friends until I was on Facebook on Friday night. I was doing the live tweeting and stuff, and Phil told me he was doing your Facebook stuff, and I was like, "That's crazy."
Yeah,
it's such a small world, which is why we got to always remember to be nice to each other. You never know.
That son of a bitch, Clay.
Yeah. It won't take much to ruin reputation, really. So it's important.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, Phil's a good guy, so that was really funny. Just funny how small everything is all of a sudden. So, but hey, that's it.
It's nuts.
It is nuts. Hey, get back to work, and we'll talk soon. Okay, Vance?
Awesome, brother. Thanks so much, Clay. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Bye-bye.
Bye, buddy. Bye-bye.